You know, as the turmoil in the Middle East spreads, so does U.S. arms sales to the region. The Saudis, they're using F-15s to bomb Yemen. The Emirates, they're buying F-16s as it bombs Syria. And Egypt, Bahrain, Jordan, all lining up to buy more American hardware. The U.S. used to restrict arms sales to the region, but with conflicts flaring up everywhere and Iran gaining more influence in places like Iraq, Yemen, and Syria, America is selling more arms to our Sunni allies as a counterweight to the Iranians. Now, all that is going on while the U.S. and its allies are trying to negotiate a deal that will stop Iran from getting nuclear weapons. Iran saying the strife in the region a big problem, but the nuclear issue, according to at least one, is not. The Iranian foreign minister writing an op-ed in today's Times that said, in part, "We can and should put this manufactured crisis to rest and move on to much more important work. The wider Persian Gulf region is in turmoil. The social, cultural, and religious fabrics of entire countries are being torn to shreds." And May 13th, this will all come to a head, everyone, when Arab leaders, they'll be meeting at the White House for a summit. Well, Mike will solve everything in a matter of minutes. That's Mike Lyons, military analyst, retired captain in the U.S. Army. All right, Mike. People saw the report as to the arms sales to nations that traditionally we didn't sell as much to, and obviously with the bizarre bedfellows that are right now in the unfolding Middle East. Is it an unavoidable problem, or have we inadvertently been enablers here as some bad actors?
I think we've finally got to the spot where we thought we would be 20 years ago, in that these proxy wars are taking place, and we're on the outside looking in and selling hardware, not necessarily the top stuff, but we're selling them this military equipment, and on certain sides that we want to see. So, for example, what we have in Yemen, we're helping the Saudis on the side against the Iranians, and at the same time trying to do a nuclear deal with the Iranians. But everyone seems to be in their lane. Everyone seems to be channel focused on what they're doing. Iran now is backing off of their support of the Houthis, so to speak, and now we just deployed the USS Teddy Roosevelt, so now we put a carrier group in there, which is gunboat diplomacy at its finest. So, you know, and if not us, then who? If we don't stay engaged in the Middle East, even though this president wants out, if we don't stay engaged in the Middle East, somebody will sell weapons, the Chinese or the Russians, to these parties.
But Mike, isn't this what we always do? I mean, we sold weapons to both Iran and Iraq while they were at war with each other. We sold weapons to Israel and Egypt before they signed. I mean, this is what we always do. We arm both sides.
Well, we've not sold them the technology that we're selling them now, the drone systems and the aircraft systems. We had sold them to Saudi Arabia. I mean, Saudi Arabia's got an incredible air force, complements of the United States. You know, we sell them small arms, some limited capabilities, but these are game changers. When you sell the technology we're selling right now, it's really going to tip the balance to one side or the other.
To that end, though, do we know the sides that we want to win clearly? Because it's not nation state anymore, it's more sectarian violence. Have we figured out what we want the end game to be, or are we still figuring that out on the fly?
I think we're still figuring that out on some level, and the nuclear deal is part of that. Again, let's just simplify this in very simple terms. You have a Sunni Shia religious war that's taking place, civil war that's taking place. This could go on for 30 years. It could replicate what happened in the 30 Years' War and 100 Years' War back in earlier centuries. Maybe it'll accelerate faster because of technology and because of things that happen, but that's really that situation. So now you pair that down to countries. And you've got Iran trying to be the hegemony in the region, trying to be the dominant player. It's always been our foreign policy that not one single player would be that dominant role. Russia trying to come back into the scene. We thought they were out with what happened in Syria, but that's not the case. And then all these other weak and failed nation states. And that's really the crux of a lot of these problems. The failed third world nation states are problems for the rest of the world, because now they provide the safe havens for the terrorists to operate freely.
The game change for us is nobody gets a nuke. Israel's got a nuke, nobody else here. That's the rule. Should that be basically the bright line? And is that basically next month when the president's got Arab leaders in here to say, be clear, Iran's not getting one, so don't try it, Saudis, don't try it, UAE. Nobody's getting one of you guys. Is that the principal message? I know there's others that are going on, but is that what's going to go on in the White House?
Well, those who argue against the deal say this, that you've left enough of a program in place in Iran for them to have a nuke. All the deal really does is increase that breakout period to 1 year, and the breakout period is the amount of centrifuges needed and the amount of infrastructure they need to create a nuclear weapon. And we were talking about before, it's one thing to have a nuke, it's another to deliver it. But let's say that period is a year from now. those who are against it say by any nuclear program whatsoever, you're going to give them that capability, even if it's now or 10 years from now. Those who are for the deal say, look, we're not going to deny that Iran has got a nuclear program. They can't unlearn that nuclear program. This actually gives a 10-year détente, so to speak, message that takes place. You saw what the foreign minister said today. This is eventually going to go outside of this deal and open up the markets to other things. So, you know, again, if you're for the deal, it's because you don't want war and because you think that Iran's going to do the right thing. If you're against the deal, it's because you don't think Iran should have any nuclear program, full stop.
But Mike, can I ask, what are the signs that they're going to adhere to this and that they're not going to do anything bad? Because people against the deal say, just look historically, years and years, there's countless evidence that they are not going to abide by this.
Not only that, it's that we won't enforce it. You have a president that drew a red line and didn't enforce it.
In Syria and elsewhere.
Right, so because the cost to enforce this is going to take potentially lives and treasure. I've advocated for us to really enforce this, you've got to move people to Iran. They've got to live side by side. I mean, the amount of nuclear infrastructure that Iran has right now is incredible. It's unlike the other Arab nations when they built nuclear weapons, nuclear power. In 1981, the Israelis destroyed the reactor at Osirak. It was one target. It was one reactor. It was an easy thing from a military perspective to do. It's just not the case right now. Iran's got a very sophisticated nuclear program that if they continue down the path, they'll be able to create a nuclear weapon.
We always heard 3 years from now, 3 years from now, 3 years from now, they're going to be ready. That it's almost like the boy who cried wolf. And more to that point, Mike, to just continue with the status quo, it's not like you're preventing them from doing everything, at least this way. Isn't it a legitimate argument? You're going to have more intelligence, and then you make your decisions, but at least you'll know more and have more access?
Well, if we get the deal as it's currently structured that we see from our president, maybe different what the Iranians are saying, they won't have the capability to make a bomb. They won't be able to enrich past 3%.
Right.
That gives them nuclear power for hospitals and the like. I mean, this is a country that has tremendous oil resources. That's where you can argue they don't need it. It takes their centrifuges down from 19,000 to about 6,000. Again, so they won't have enough of the factories, let's say, to spin the uranium up to create the weapon. So it all has to be enforced, and the only way to do that is be on the ground and endure the hardship and make sure that they're not doing it. And again, the question gets back to, will we do that or not?
Final details, what, by the end of June? Is that when we're expecting them to be worked out?
That's when they want to have the deal done, because we're running out of time. The breakout period, that time where they can have a nuke, some argue it's almost 60 days. I mean, they've had 19,000 centrifuges. And we could then argue, well, why do they want to have a nuclear weapon? First of all, it'll start an arms race in that part of the world. Saudi Arabia will want one. They'll go to some other country to bring it in to gather it. Possibly Libya, Egypt will want one. There's other countries that are going to want that responsibility. And the next thing you know, you've got a complete arms race that's taking place in there because they now have the capability.
What a hopeful sign that would be, a nuclear Middle East. All right, everybody. Mike's going to stay with us, and we're going to switch to these guys' world, which is politics. And there's a new book out that's going after Hillary for foreign donations to the Clinton Foundation. But is there any there, or is this just another opportunity for the GOP to pile on? We'll get into that and more.